The fallen warrior. The acrid smell of burning metal and scorched earth filled the air as Zarek, once a proud warrior of the Krelnar Empire, lay broken and bleeding on the desolate battlefield. His crimson blood, a stark contrast against his silver-scaled skin, pooled beneath him, a testament to the ferocity of the battle that had raged mere hours ago. Zarek's four eyes, usually sharp and alert, now struggled to focus on the smoke-filled sky above. His body, designed for combat with its reinforced exoskeleton and powerful limbs, had finally met its match against the relentless assault of the enemy's plasma cannons. He could feel his life force ebbing away, each labored breath bringing him closer to the eternal void. In the distance, he could hear the retreating sounds of his fellow Krelnar warriors. Their heavy footsteps and the clank of their armor grew fainter with each passing moment. Zarek tried to call out, to signal his location, but his voice was barely a whisper. The realization struck him like a physical blow. They were leaving him behind. The Krelnar lived by a strict code. Only the strong survive, and the weak are left to perish. It was a philosophy that had shaped their society for millennia, turning them into one of the most feared and respected warrior races in the galaxy. Zarek had always taken pride in this ruthless efficiency, never questioning the wisdom of abandoning the injured or the captured. But now, as he lay dying on this forsaken planet, he felt the bitter sting of betrayal. Hours passed, though to Zarek, they felt like an eternity. The twin suns of this alien world set, plunging the battlefield into darkness. The temperature dropped rapidly, and Zarek's body began to shut down, his species' natural hibernation response kicking in to preserve what little life remained in him. As consciousness slipped away, Zarek's mind drifted to memories of his homeworld. The gleaming citadels of the Krelnar capital, the rigorous training he had undergone since hatching, the countless battles he had fought across the stars. He had never questioned his purpose or the Empire's goals. Now, in what he believed to be his final moments, doubt crept into his mind like a poison. The sound of voices roused Zarek from his stupor. At first, he thought it was a hallucination, a final trick of his dying brain. But as the voices grew louder, he realized they were real, and unlike anything he had heard before. "Over here, I found something, or someone." The language was unfamiliar, but the universal translator implanted in Zarek's brain struggled to make sense of it. He forced his eyes open, his vision blurry but slowly focusing on the figures approaching him. They were bipedal, like many species in the galaxy, but their appearance was utterly alien to Zarek. Their skin was soft and exposed, without scales or exoskeletons. They had only two eyes, set in faces that seemed unnaturally expressive. And strangest of all, they wore no armor, just thin fabric coverings that offered no apparent protection. Humans. The word floated up from the depths of Zarek's memory. He had heard of this species, a relatively new player on the galactic stage, originating from a backwater planet called Earth. The Krelnar had dismissed them as weak, unworthy of conquest or even acknowledgement. Yet here they were, on this war-torn world, while his own people had abandoned him. One of the humans knelt beside him, and Zarek instinctively tried to reach for his weapon. But his arm wouldn't respond, and he could only watch helplessly as the human examined him. "He's alive, but barely," the human said, turning to its companions. "We need to get him medical attention fast." Zarek couldn't comprehend what was happening. Why weren't they finishing him off? In his experience, finding an enemy combatant meant one of two things: take them prisoner or eliminate them. Yet these humans seemed to be helping him. As the humans carefully lifted him onto some sort of hovering stretcher, Zarek's mind raced. He tried to speak, to demand answers, but no words came. The human who had first approached him noticed his distress and placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "It's okay," the human said, its voice surprisingly soothing. "We're here to help. You're safe now." Safe. The concept seemed foreign to Zarek. Safety was something you earned through strength and vigilance, not something freely given by strangers, especially not to an enemy. As the humans moved him towards what appeared to be their ship, Zarek's confusion only grew. The interior of the human vessel was a stark contrast to the utilitarian designs of Krellnar ships. It was brightly lit, with smooth curves instead of harsh angles. The air smelled clean and carried a hint of something Zarek couldn't identify. Something almost pleasant. The humans worked quickly, transferring him to a medical bay that hummed with unfamiliar technology. A device scanned his body, and moments later, one of the humans, a medical officer, Zarek presumed, began treating his wounds with a precision that surprised him. As the pain in his body began to subside, replaced by a numbing sensation, Zarek found himself able to think more clearly. He observed the humans as they worked, noting their efficiency and the apparent concern on their faces. It was so different from the cold, detached manner of Krellnar medics, who viewed injured soldiers as little more than broken equipment to be repaired or discarded. One of the humans, clearly a leader of some sort, approached Zarek's bedside. "I'm Captain Alina Reyes of the Earth exploration vessel Hope," she said, her tone firm but not unkind. "Can you understand me?" Zarek managed a weak nod, his universal translator finally fully processing their language. "Good," Reyes continued. "We found you abandoned on the battlefield. We're not sure what happened, but we couldn't leave you there to die. Do you have a name?" Zarek hesitated. Giving his name to a potential enemy went against everything he had been taught. But these humans had saved his life when his own people had left him for dead. After a moment, he spoke, his voice raspy and strained. "I am Zarek, Battlemaster of the 7th Krellnar Legion," he said, mustering as much dignity as he could in his weakened state. Captain Reyes nodded, showing no sign of fear or hostility at learning his identity. "Well, Battlemaster Zarek, you're safe aboard our ship. We'll do everything we can to help you recover." As the captain turned to consult with her medical officer, Zarek found himself overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. Gratitude warred with suspicion, relief with confusion. Everything he knew about warfare and the nature of different species was being challenged by the actions of these humans. As the medical treatments took effect and his body began to heal, Zarek realized that his journey was far from over. He had survived the battle, but now he faced a challenge perhaps even greater: understanding these strange humans and their incomprehensible compassion. As he drifted into a healing sleep, one question burned in his mind: why had they saved him? Little did Zarek know that this encounter would not only change his life, but potentially reshape the relationship between humans and Krellnar forever. The true test of understanding and cooperation was yet to come. Unexpected saviors. As consciousness slowly returned to Zarek, the stark reality of his situation came into focus. The familiar hum of Krellnar technology was absent, replaced by the soft beeping of alien medical equipment. His eyes, all four of them, blinked open, adjusting to the warm, diffused light of the human medical bay. Captain Alina Reyes stood nearby, conferring quietly with her chief medical officer, Dr. Aiden Chen. They both turned as Zarek stirred, approaching his bedside with a mix of caution and curiosity. "Battlemaster Zarek," Reyes addressed him, her tone respectful but firm. "How are you feeling?" Zarek took a moment to assess his condition. The searing pain had subsided to a dull ache, and he could feel his body's natural healing processes working in tandem with the human medical treatments. It was disconcerting. "I function," he replied, his voice gravelly. "Why have you done this? We are not allies." Dr. Chen stepped forward, datapad in hand. "From a medical standpoint, leaving you to die would have been unconscionable. Your injuries were severe, but not beyond our ability to treat." Zarek's facial scales shifted in what the humans had learned was an expression of confusion. "But the resources expended, the risk, it is not logical." Captain Reyes smiled slightly, a gesture Zarek found difficult to interpret. "Not everything we do is based on pure logic, Battlemaster." Compassion is a core tenet of our species. We help those in need, regardless of their origin. The concept was so foreign to Zarek that he struggled to process it. In Krelnar society, every action was weighed against its potential benefit to the Empire. Expending resources on an enemy combatant would be seen as weakness, even treason. As if reading his thoughts, Rice continued, "We understand this might be difficult for you to comprehend, given what we know of Krelnar culture. But we hope that through this act, we can foster better understanding between our species." Zarek's natural suspicion flared. "You seek to use me for diplomatic advantage," he stated, a note of accusation in his voice. Dr. Chen shook his head. "That's not our primary motivation. Yes, we hope this encounter might lead to improved relations, but our immediate concern was saving your life." The sincerity in the doctor's voice was palpable, and Zarek found himself at a loss. His training had never prepared him for this kind of situation. He had been taught to view all non-Krelnar as potential threats or conquests, not as beings capable of selfless actions. As Zarek grappled with these new concepts, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Captain Rey's comm device crackled to life, and the urgent voice of her first officer filled the air. "Captain, we've detected multiple ships entering the system. They match Krelnar signatures." Zarek's body tensed instinctively, years of military training kicking in. He expected the humans to immediately turn hostile, to treat him as a threat now that his people had arrived. Instead, he watched in amazement as Reyes calmly issued orders to her crew, never once glancing at him with suspicion. "Battlemaster," she addressed him directly, "we have no intention of holding you against your will. If these are your people coming to retrieve you, we will not stand in their way. However, if you wish to remain under our care until you've fully recovered, we will do everything in our power to ensure your safety and autonomy." The offer stunned Zarek. In a matter of moments, these humans had demonstrated more concern for his well-being and personal choice than his own species had shown in his entire lifetime. The realization sent a shockwave through his understanding of the universe. Before he could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Dr. Chen steadied himself against a nearby console, his face etched with concern. "Captain, that felt like weapons fire." Reyes' expression hardened. "Understood. Battlemaster, it seems your people are not here on a peaceful mission. I need to get to the bridge. Dr. Chen will remain here with you. Please, for both our sakes, don't do anything rash." As the captain hurried out, Zarek found himself torn between his ingrained loyalty to the Krelnar Empire and the unexpected kindness shown by these humans. The sound of battle outside the ship grew more intense, and he could sense the fear and determination emanating from Dr. Chen. "Your people," the doctor said quietly, "they're not just here for you, are they?" Zarek closed his eyes, a heavy feeling settling in his chest. "No," he admitted. "The Krelnar do not rescue. They conquer." Chen's face paled, but he stood his ground. "Then we're all in danger. Battlemaster, I know you have no reason to trust us, but we need your help. Your knowledge of Krelnar tactics could save lives, human and Krelnar alike." The request went against everything Zarek had been taught. To aid an enemy was the highest form of treason. And yet, as he looked at the determination in Dr. Chen's eyes, he felt something shift within him. These humans, these strange, compassionate beings, had saved him when his own people had left him for dead. They had treated him with dignity and respect, asking nothing in return. In that moment, Zarek made a decision that would alter the course of his life and potentially the future of interstellar relations. He pushed himself up from the medical bed, ignoring the protest of his still healing body. "Help me to your bridge," he said, his voice filled with newfound resolve. "If we are to survive this, humans and Krelnar alike, we must work together." Dr. Chen nodded, a mix of relief and apprehension on his face. As they made their way through the corridors of the ship, alarms blaring and crew members rushing to their stations, Zarek felt a strange sense of purpose. For the first time in his life, he was not fighting for conquest or the glory of the Empire. He was fighting for something far more valuable, the chance at understanding between two vastly different species. As they approached the bridge, the ship rocked with another impact. Zarek steadied himself against the wall, his warrior instincts kicking in. He realized that what lay ahead was more than just a battle. It was a test of everything he believed, everything he had been taught. And as the doors to the bridge slid open, revealing the chaos of combat and the determined faces of the human crew, Zarek knew that the real challenge was just beginning. The fate of two species now hung in the balance, and the actions of one unlikely alliance could change the course of galactic history forever. Learning to trust. The bridge of the Earth exploration vessel Hope was a flurry of activity as Zarek and Dr. Chen entered. Captain Rice stood at the center, her face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays, showing the positions of the attacking Krellnar ships. Battlemaster, Rice acknowledged Zarek's presence without taking her eyes off the main screen. I hope you're here to help, because we could certainly use it. Zarek moved forward, his eyes rapidly assessing the situation. The Hope was outnumbered 3-1, and the Krellnar ships were employing a standard pincer formation, designed to trap and destroy their target. Your shields, Zarek said, his voice carrying an urgency that made the bridge crew turn. They will not hold against sustained Krellnar fire. You must alter your defense strategy immediately. Captain Rice nodded to her tactical officer. You heard him. Make it happen. As the crew scrambled to adjust their defenses, Zarek felt a strange mix of emotions. He was betraying everything he had ever known, every oath he had ever sworn to the Empire. And yet, watching these humans work together, trusting him despite the fact that he was one of their attackers, stirred something deep within him. Captain, Zarek continued, the Krellnar ships will be expecting you to attempt an escape. It is what most species do when confronted with superior numbers. But if we instead move to attack the lead ship, we may be able to disrupt their formation. Rice raised an eyebrow. That's a risky move, Battlemaster. Are you sure? Zarek met her gaze, his 4 eyes blinking in what the humans had learned was a sign of sincerity. I am sure of nothing, Captain, but I know my people, and I know that such an aggressive move would be unexpected. There was a moment of tense silence on the bridge. Rice studied Zarek, clearly weighing the risks of trusting an alien who, until recently, had been an enemy. Finally, she nodded. Helm, set course for the lead Krellnar ship. Weapons, prepare to fire on my mark. As the Hope surged forward, cutting through space towards the larger Krellnar vessel, Zarek felt a rush of adrenaline. This was not the cold, calculated combat he was used to. This was desperate, daring, and utterly human. The lead Krellnar ship, caught off guard by the aggressive maneuver, began to turn, its weapons struggling to track the faster, more agile human vessel. Zarek called out weak points in the Krellnar defenses, and the Hope's weapons officer targeted them with precision. Explosions blossomed across the hull of the Krellnar ship, and for a moment, it seemed as though the audacious plan might work. But then, a massive energy surge emanated from the damaged vessel. Evasive maneuvers, Zarek shouted, recognizing the signs of a last-ditch Krellnar tactic. They're overloading their core. Captain Rice didn't hesitate. All power to engines. Get us out of here. The Hope veered away just as the Krellnar ship detonated in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave hit them hard, sending crew members tumbling and systems flickering. But they had survived. As the dust settled, it became clear that the explosion had damaged the other Krellnar ships as well. Their attack formation broken, they began to retreat, leaving the battered but victorious Hope behind. A cheer went up from the human crew, but Zarek remained silent, his eyes fixed on the retreating ships of his people. He had just participated in the defeat of his own kind, and the weight of that decision pressed heavily upon him. Captain Rice approached him, her face a mix of gratitude and concern. Battlemaster, I thank you. We couldn't have survived this without your help. Zarek turned to her, his expression unreadable. I have betrayed my people, Captain. In the eyes of the Empire, I am now worse than dead. I am a traitor. Dr. Chen, who had remained quietly observing from the side, stepped forward. But you saved lives today, Zarek. Not just human lives, but Krellner as well. If we had been destroyed, your people would have continued their attack until they were all dead too. Zarek blinked, considering this perspective. It was true that the outcome could have been much worse, but the concept of valuing lives over victory was still foreign to him. I do not know how to reconcile what I have done with what I have always believed, Zarek admitted, his usual confident demeanor faltering. Captain Rice placed a hand on his arm, a gesture of comfort that would have been unthinkable just days ago. That's okay, Battlemaster. Understanding doesn't come overnight, but you've taken the first step towards something greater than just victory in battle. You've opened the door to peace. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Zarek found himself exhausted, both physically and emotionally. The humans guided him back to the medical bay, where he could rest and recover. But as he lay there, his mind raced with new thoughts and possibilities. He had seen firsthand the strength of humanity, not just in their technology or tactics, but in their compassion, their willingness to trust, and their ability to work together despite differences. It was a kind of strength the Krellnar had never considered, and it challenged everything Zarek had ever known. As he drifted off to sleep, Zarek realized that his journey was far from over. He had learned to trust these humans, but could he learn to trust himself? Could he forge a new path, one that combined the best aspects of Krellnar discipline with human compassion? The answers to these questions would not come easily. But as the hope continued its journey through the stars, with Zarek now an unlikely ally, the potential for a new understanding between humans and Krellnar grew. And with it the hope for a future where cooperation could replace conflict, and where the strengths of different species could be celebrated rather than feared. The true test of Zarek's newfound trust, and the humans' faith in him, was yet to come. But for now, in the quiet of the medical bay, a small seed of change had been planted, one that could potentially reshape the galaxy itself. The ultimate test. Weeks passed aboard the Earth exploration vessel Hope as it made its way through the star-studded expanse of space. For Zarek, each day brought new revelations and challenges. The humans' way of life, so different from the rigid military structure of the Krellnar, both fascinated and confused him. He observed their interactions, their camaraderie, and their seemingly endless capacity for adapting to new situations. Zarek found himself drawn into their world, participating in what they called social activities. Shared meals, recreational pursuits, and even philosophical discussions that would have been considered a waste of time in Krellnar society. Captain Rice and Dr. Chen had become his primary guides in this strange new world. They patiently explained human customs and ideals, always eager to learn about Krellnar culture in return. Zarek found himself opening up, sharing insights about his people that he had never before questioned. It was during one such conversation in the ship's mess hall that the alert klaxons began to blare. Captain Ray's comm device crackled to life with an urgent message from the bridge. "Captain, we've detected a large Krellnar fleet on an intercept course. They're hailing us." The mess hall fell silent, all eyes turning to Zarek. He felt a chill run through his body, his scales rippling with tension. This was the moment he had both anticipated and dreaded. "Battlemaster," Rice said, her voice calm but serious. "We could use your insight on this." Zarek nodded, following the captain as she strode purposefully towards the bridge. As they walked, he spoke in low tones. "Captain, you must understand. The Krellnar do not negotiate. They do not compromise. They have come to reclaim what they see as their property. Me. And to eliminate what they perceive as a threat. You." Ray's expression hardened. "We're not giving you up, Zarek. You're part of our crew now, whether you realize it or not." The words struck Zarek deeply. In the short time he had spent with these humans, they had shown him more loyalty than he had experienced in centuries of service to the Empire. As they entered the bridge, the main view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern visage of Supreme Commander Vexorn, Zarek's former superior and one of the most feared leaders in the Krulnar hierarchy. Humans. Vexorn's voice boomed, filled with disdain. You have something that belongs to us. Return the traitor Zarek immediately, and we may consider allowing your vessel to leave intact. Captain Reyes stepped forward, her bearing every bit as commanding as the Krulnar leaders. Supreme Commander, Battlemaster Zarek is under our protection. He is not our prisoner, nor is he your property. He is free to make his own choices. Vexorn's eyes narrowed, his scales darkening with anger. Foolish humans, you do not understand our ways. Zarek's life belongs to the Empire. His betrayal demands punishment. Zarek felt a surge of familiar fear and loyalty at the sound of his former commander's voice, but it was quickly overshadowed by a new emotion, indignation. He stepped into view of the camera, standing tall beside Captain Reyes. Supreme Commander, he said, his voice steady, I have not betrayed our people. I have discovered a new way, a better way. The humans have shown me that strength comes not just from conquest, but from cooperation and mutual understanding. Vexorn's face contorted with rage. You dare speak of weakness as strength. You have been corrupted, Zarek. You are no longer Krulnar. Perhaps, Zarek replied, feeling a strange sense of liberation. I am something more. The view screen went dark, and moments later, the sensors lit up with warnings. The Krulnar fleet was moving into attack formation. Captain Reyes turned to her crew. Battle stations, everyone. But hold your fire. We're not starting this fight. Zarek looked at her in surprise. Captain, the Krulnar will not show such restraint. They will attack without mercy. Reyes met his gaze, a small smile on her lips. I know, but we're going to show them a different way. Battlemaster, I have an idea, but I'll need your help. Are you with us? For a moment, Zarek hesitated. He stood at the crossroads of two worlds, the unyielding, conquering force of the Krulnar, and the adaptive, compassionate strength of humanity. In that instant, he made his choice. I am with you, Captain. What is your plan? As Reyes outlined her strategy, Zarek felt a mix of admiration and disbelief. It was audacious, potentially suicidal, and utterly, uniquely human. But as he looked around at the determined faces of the crew, he realized that this unwavering hope in the face of overwhelming odds, was the true strength of humanity. The Krulnar ships drew closer, their weapons charging. On the bridge of the Hope, humans and a lone Krulnar worked side by side, preparing for a battle that would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of interstellar relations. Zarek took a deep breath, feeling the weight of millennia of Krulnar history on his shoulders. But as Captain Reyes gave the order to implement their daring plan, he felt something else too, a burgeoning sense of hope. As the first salvos of the battle lit up the void of space, Zarek knew that whatever the outcome, this moment would change everything. The ultimate test had begun, and the galaxy held its breath to see what would emerge from the crucible of conflict between the unyielding Krulnar and the indomitable human spirit. A new perspective. The vastness of space erupted into a dazzling display of weapons fire as the Krulnar fleet engaged the lone human vessel. But contrary to Krulnar expectations, the Hope did not return fire. Instead, it executed a series of complex maneuvers, dodging and weaving through the barrage with remarkable precision. On the bridge, Zarek worked alongside the human crew, his knowledge of Krulnar tactics proving invaluable. They will attempt to box us in, he advised, his eyes darting across the tactical display. We must maintain our unpredictability. Captain Reyes nodded, her face a mask of concentration. Helm, random pattern delta. Communications, broadcast on all frequencies. As the Hope continued its elaborate dance through space, avoiding destruction by mere meters at times, a message began to emanate from the ship. It was not in words, but in music, a haunting, beautiful melody that filled the airwaves. Zarek's eyes widened in recognition. This is, from your planet Earth, what you call classical music. Dr. Chen, who had insisted on remaining on the bridge, smiled. Beethoven's Ode to Joy, a reminder of the beauty we can create when we work together. The music swelled, its powerful harmonies resonating through space. On the Krelnar ships, confusion reigned. Their sensors detected no weapons fire, no hostile actions beyond evasive maneuvers. And this sound, it was unlike anything they had encountered before. Supreme Commander Vexorn's voice crackled over the comms once more, filled with frustration. What trickery is this? Fight, cowards. Captain Rice opened a channel. This is no trick, Commander. This is an invitation. An invitation to see things differently, as Zarek has. We don't want to fight you. We want to understand you, and for you to understand us. As she spoke, the Hope executed a daring maneuver, flying directly between two Krelnar cruisers. But instead of attacking, it released a cloud of small, glowing orbs. Each orb, as it made contact with the Krelnar ships, projected holographic images, scenes from Earth, moments of human creativity, compassion, and cooperation. Zarek watched in awe as the space around them transformed into a gallery of human achievement and spirit. He saw families embracing, artists creating, scientists discovering, and people of all kinds working together to overcome challenges. This, Rise continued, her voice carried to every Krelnar ship, is who we are. Not just warriors, not just conquerors, but creators, explorers, dreamers. We believe there's room in this vast universe for all of us, not to fight, but to grow together. On the Krelnar ships, weapons fell silent as crews were transfixed by the display. Millennia of rigid doctrine and unquestioning obedience began to crack in the face of this unprecedented encounter. Vexorn's voice, when it came again, was quieter, tinged with something that might have been uncertainty. Zarek, is this truly what you have chosen? To abandon our ways for? This. Zarek stepped forward, his voice clear and resolute. I have not abandoned our ways, Supreme Commander. I have expanded them. The humans have shown me that true strength lies not in domination, but in diversity. In the ability to adapt, to learn, to grow. Is that not the ultimate form of survival? A heavy silence fell over the battlefield. The music continued to play. The images continued to shine, and in that moment, the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Finally, Vexorn spoke again. Perhaps there is wisdom in your words, Zarek. We have always sought to become stronger. If there is strength to be found in this human way, it warrants investigation. The tension on the Hope's bridge broke, replaced by a wave of cautious optimism. Captain Rice smiled, her eyes shining. Supreme Commander, we would be honored to begin a dialogue. There is so much we can learn from each other. In the days that followed, an unprecedented exchange began. Krelnar delegates cautiously boarded the Hope, while human representatives were allowed onto the Krelnar ships. Zarek found himself in the role of mediator, bridging the gap between two vastly different cultures. It was not an easy process. Centuries of Krelnar militarism could not be undone in a day, and many humans struggled to trust their former enemies. But slowly, surely, understanding began to grow. Zarek watched as Krelnar warriors marveled at human art, as human scientists eagerly studied Krelnar technology. He saw the first tentative friendships form, heard the first shared laughs, witnessed the first collaborative projects begin. Months later, as the Hope prepared to return to Earth, now accompanied by a Krelnar diplomatic envoy, Zarek stood in the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. Captain Rice joined him, a companionable silence falling between them. You know, she said finally, when we found you on that battlefield, I never imagined it would lead to this. Zarek nodded, his 4 eyes blinking in reflection. Nor did I, Captain. I thought my life was over. Instead, I found a new beginning. We all did. Ray smiled. It won't be easy. There's still so much work to do, so many challenges to overcome. Indeed, Zarek agreed. But for the first time in my long life, I look to the future with hope rather than determination. And that, I've learned, makes all the difference. As the hope jumped to warp, carrying with it the seeds of a new era of interstellar cooperation, Zarek felt a profound sense of peace. He had lost his old identity, yes, but he had gained something far greater. He had become a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what was possible when different species chose understanding over conflict. The journey ahead would be long and undoubtedly fraught with challenges. But as human and Krellnar worked together on the bridge, their differences no longer a source of fear but of strength, Zarek knew that they were on the right path. In the vast, star-filled expanse of the galaxy, a new chapter had begun. And for Zarek, once a warrior of conquest, now an ambassador of peace, the greatest adventure of his life was just beginning.